Hello and welcome to our morning edition of Arirang News. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed that a South Korean-operated cargo ship was attacked by Iran in the Strait of Hormuz earlier this week, after deciding to navigate the waterway alone, adding that ships guarded by the U.S. remain safe. Iran says it has imposed a new system to regulate ship transit through the Strait of Hormuz, warning only routes authorized by Tehran are safe, and that any deviation could trigger a decisive response. A shooting at a Koreatown north of Dallas, Texas, has left 2 people dead and 3 injured. The suspect, later identified as 69-year-old Han Song-woo, fled the scene but was arrested nearby. U.S. President Donald Trump has claimed that a South Korean-operated cargo ship was attacked by Iran in the Strait of Hormuz earlier this week, after deciding to navigate the waterway alone. The United States also announced the conclusion of its offensive campaign against Iran, but that the next phase, Project Freedom, would be paused, apparently due to ongoing negotiations. Our Lee Soo-jin has the details.
U.S. President Donald Trump says a South Korean-operated cargo ship that reported an explosion in the Strait of Hormuz was attacked by Iran. Speaking at the White House on Tuesday, Trump said the vessel and other ships had been shot at by Iran after deciding to cross the critical waterway alone, adding that ships guarded by the U.S. remained safe. On the same day, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio officially announced that Operation Epic Fury, the offensive phase of the U.S. campaign that began in late February, is over.
Yeah, look, the Operation Epic Fury is concluded. Okay, we're now on to this Project of Freedom. Now, what's really important for you to report and for everyone to understand is this is not an offensive operation. This is a defensive operation.
However, later on Tuesday, Trump took to social media to say Project Freedom, which includes the U.S. military guiding ships through the Strait of Hormuz, would be paused for a short period. Citing a request from countries like Pakistan and great progress toward a final agreement with Iran, he said the movement of ships is being halted to see if a deal can be finalized and that the blockade of Iranian ports remains in full effect. The Pentagon also emphasized its expectation for U.S. allies to join the effort in the Strait's maritime safety.
We hope South Korea would step up, just like we hope Japan would step up, just like we hope Australia would step up. But the president was clear in his truth message that, hey, this is your ship, you should take part in helping to defend it.
According to experts, Trump's decision to put the brakes on a major defense project could signal that behind-the-scenes negotiations regarding an end to the war and denuclearization may be making significant progress. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
Iran has imposed new controls on ship transit through the Strait of Hormuz, warning vessels to follow routes authorized by Tehran or face a decisive response. The move comes as tensions escalate with the United States and the UAE trade accusations with Iran over reported missile and drone activity. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Iran has introduced a new system to regulate ship movements through the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz, escalating tensions with the United States over control of the key waterway. According to Press TV on Tuesday, vessels seeking to transit the strait must now follow a framework set by Iran's Persian Gulf Strait Authority. Ships receive instructions via email and are required to comply before being granted a transit permit. The move comes as Iran tightens its grip on maritime traffic through the strait, a critical global energy corridor through which a significant portion of the world's oil supply passes. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Navy, has warned that only routes authorized by Tehran are considered safe, adding that any deviation could trigger what it called a decisive response. In a statement carried by Iran's Fars news agency on Tuesday, the IRGC Navy said vessels must use corridors previously designated by Iran, and that unauthorized routes should be deemed unsafe. Meanwhile, regional tensions have intensified. The United Arab Emirates said its air defense systems intercepted multiple aerial threats originating from Iran. In a statement posted on X, the UAE Ministry of Defense said explosions heard across parts of the country were the result of intercepting ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. However, Iran has denied carrying out any such attacks. State broadcaster Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting cited a military spokesman as saying no missile or drone operations had been launched against the UAE and dismissed the claims as baseless. The spokesman warned that any attack on Iran originating from UAE territory would be met with a decisive and forceful retaliation. He also accused the UAE of allowing U.S. and Israeli forces to operate from its soil, urging Emirati authorities not to become a base for what he described as hostile powers. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Global oil prices fell overnight after posting sharp gains at the start of the week. With prices swinging sharply since the outbreak of war, the UAE announced last week that it's leaving OPEC, saying it wants to supply more oil than its OPEC quota allows, in a move that would potentially help push down prices once the Strait of Hormuz opens. For more on this and the domestic economy here in South Korea, we're joined today by Professor Park Min-jung, professor at the Department of Business Administration at Kumo National Institute of Technology. Professor Park, thanks for coming on today.
Hey, thank you for having me today.
So, 7 OPEC plus countries have agreed to increase oil production starting in June after the UAE said it would exit the group. So will this help bring down global oil prices?
Yeah, the recent decisions by several OPEC plus members to increase production may provide short-term relief to global oil prices by signaling their higher supply, especially amid uncertainty following UAE potential exit. However, the overall impact is likely to be limited. Oil prices are shaped not only by supply, but also by geopolitical risks, global demand, and economic conditions. In particular, tensions in the Middle East could offset any downward pressure from increased output. Moreover, the scale of the production increase may not be large enough to significantly shift market fundamentals. Markets may instead focus more on internal divisions within OPEC+, which could increase price volatility. In short, while this move helps stabilize prices in the short term, it is unlikely to lead to a sustained decline in global oil prices.
Right, and despite this Middle East conflict, Korea's exports actually surged last month, marking the second straight month that exports exceeded $80 billion. What do you make of this latest data?
Despite ongoing geopolitical tensions in the Middle East, Korea's export performance remains remarkably resilient. The fact that exports may exceed $8 billion for 2 consecutive months suggests that external demand, particularly in key sectors, is still holding up well. One important factor is that the strong recovery in high-value industries, such as semiconductors, which continue to Korea's export growth. In addition, diversified export markets and relatively stable global supply chains have helped cushion the potential negative impact from regional conflicts. That said, we should be cautious about interpreting this trend as entirely sustainable. The Middle East remains a critical region for energy supply, and any escalation could lead to high oil prices, increased logistic costs, and broader inflationary pressures, all of which could eventually weigh on export competitiveness. So in short, while the current data reflects among momentum and structural resilience in Korea's export sector, the outlook still depends heavily on high geopolitical risks and global demand conditions evolve in the coming months.
Right, and in stock market, Korean stocks continue to rally, and the KOSPI actually surpassed 7,000 points this morning. SK Hynix market cap has even passed a significant milestone, reaching 1 quadrillion Korean won last week, and that's about $680 billion. So how significant is this, and will this momentum continue?
Yeah, the rally in the Korean stock market nowadays, with the KOSPI now approaching 5,000 after rising more than 50% this year, is clearly significant. It reflects not just a cyclical rebound, but strong investor confidence in key sectors, particularly semiconductors and AI. The surge in SK Hynix, which has recently surpassed the $1 trillion market cap level, highlights how AI-driven demand for high-performance memory is reshaping valuations. This aligns with a broader global trend where technology and AI-related firms are leading market gains. So the key issue is sustainability. Current valuations already reflect a high level of optimism, and factors such as global interest rates, U.S. monetary policy, and geopolitical risks could introduce volatility. So the sell-in May effects also suggest some seasonal caution after such a sharp rally. So while the momentum is supported by strong fundamentals, the pace is likely to be moderated.
I see. And before I let you go, Samsung Electronics labor union has been protesting over a significant pay gap compared to its rival SK Hynix and has been threatening to go on strike later this month. But with internal divisions within the union appear to be intensifying ahead of the planned strike, and some warn that even a single strike causing production disruptions could take years to recover from. What's your take on this?
The situation nowadays in Samsung Electronics is becoming more complex, not just because of the potential strike, but also due to growing internal tensions within the union itself. Reports on members leaving the union arguing that it focuses too much on semiconductor workers highlight a deepening internal conflict. At the same time, the union's concerns about pay disparities with SK Hynix are understandable, especially given SK Hynix's strong performance driven by AI-related memory demand. However, these internal divisions suggest that there is no unified position, which may reduce the likelihood of a full-scale strike. So even the possibility of a strike carries serious risks. Some estimates suggest that if a full strike materializes, operating profit could fall by around 10%, and DRAM supply could face disruptions. So in the semiconductor industry, even small disruptions can lead to a delayed supply, lower output, and long-term damage to customer trust. So from a broader perspective, these issues goes beyond labor relations. It directly affects Korea's position in the global semiconductor supply chain. So if disruptions occur, competitors, particularly in the US or Taiwan, could take advantage of gain market share. So internal conflicts may prevent a total strike. The underlying these tensions are real, and even limited disruptions could have meaningful strategic consequences.
I see. I guess we'll have to see how that goes. All right, Professor Park, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Korea's benchmark KOSPI broke through the 7,000 mark for the first time ever this morning. The index opened more than 2% higher at 7,093.01 and a 1 point surged into the 7,300 range shortly after the opening bell. The breakthrough came just over 2 months after the KOSPI first crossed the 6,000 level in late February. Strong buying momentum also triggered a buy-side sidecar soon after the open, halting buy orders for 5 minutes. Market heavyweights Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix were among the main drivers behind the gains. Korea's consumer prices rose 2.6% on-year in April, driven by soaring fuel costs. The Ministry of Data and Statistics said on Wednesday that the consumer price index for April rose 2.6% from a year earlier. On a monthly basis, prices increased 0.5%, while the annual inflation rate saw its sharpest increase in 21 months. Petroleum prices led the overall rise in inflation, surging 21.9% and more than doubling the pace of increase from the previous month. Meanwhile, agricultural, livestock, and fisheries prices fell 0.5%, while service prices climbed 2.4%. A shooting at a Koreatown in Texas has left 2 people dead and 3 injured. According to the Associated Press, the incident occurred on Tuesday at the K-Town Plaza in Carrollton, north of Dallas. The suspect fled but was arrested nearby. Authorities identified him as 69-year-old Han Sung-ho. Police Chief Roberto Arredondo said the shooting was not random, adding the suspect and victims likely had a business relationship gone bad. Carrollton is located about 32 kilometers from Dallas and has an estimated 4,000 Korean residents. Addressing challenges faced by Korean businesses amid the Middle East conflict, an event was held in Chungnam province to help smaller businesses break into global markets. Our Kim So-young tells us more.
Korean companies and overseas buyers meet face-to-face for in-depth talks. From red ginseng to seaweed, local firms highlight the quality and value of Korean products. This event, Chungnam Global Business Matching, aims to help smaller businesses break into global markets. A total of 250 local companies took part in one-on-one meetings, showcasing a wide range of products. For businesses hit by rising cost and global uncertainty, the event offered a cost-effective way to connect with new buyers.
With rising oil prices and a sluggish local economy, things have been very tough for us. But having overseas buyers brought here, it's been a huge help.
Organizers analyzed buyer demand, hired professional interpreters, and expert consultant to help facilitate deals. On the first day alone, export agreements worth around $34 million were signed. Follow-up support will continue even after the event to help these consultations into finalized contracts.
The first meeting is crucial. It's where trust begins. Once that foundation is built, it can lead to continued export opportunities.
Chungnam province plans to hold another event later this year to further support local exporters. Kim So-young, Arirang News.
In an age dominated by screens where smartphones are a constant presence in young lives, a different scene is unfolding at local libraries. Our Chung Il-ri met with children rediscovering the joy of reading.
Growing up with a tablet in their hands, children today may be more familiar with a screen than paper. But as bite-sized content dominates their attention, experts emphasize that physical books are more important than ever. Here at the National Library for Children and Young Adults, the soft sound of turning pages fills the cozy atmosphere. These children are learning that true literacy, the ability to understand context and think critically, begins with the turn of a page.
All books have different illustrations, and that's really interesting to see. I like mystery and detective books because it feels like a real event that happened.
Unlike digital screens that provide instant visuals, physical books require children to build the world themselves. Connecting with the characters with their imagination, this mental immersion also fosters deeper empathy as they learn to walk in a character's shoes one page at a time.
I like the cream puff cookie character. She's very gentle and always helps others.
Specialized libraries like this one in Songpa-gu District act as literacy playgrounds. The easygoing atmosphere makes books accessible and fun. Children can simply pick a book they like and start reading wherever. Today's children are digital natives, but in a world of instant swipes, young readers are still finding joy in the simple act of turning a page. The focus is on making reading a habit. This type of focused reading acts as a workout for the brain, helping kids improve their attention span in a world full of digital distractions.
I like books that come out as series. You can read them anytime, even during short breaks. And books are fun even when you read them again, but TV shows aren't as fun the second time.
Even complex history becomes an exciting discovery when it's found at one's own pace. For Ujin, his library hours are spent exploring the legends of the past.
I am reading a book about Admiral Yi Sun-shin.
As Korea celebrates Children's Day, these young readers remind us that even in a world where content is becoming shorter and louder, the magic of books continues to endure. 정혜림, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Chu Ji-hyun, and this is The World Now. The World Health Organization now suspects the deadly hantavirus spreading aboard a luxury cruise ship in the Atlantic may have passed from person to person. Such transmission is a rare development for a disease that normally spreads only through infected rodents. 7 cases in total have been confirmed or suspected. Of the 7, 3 people have died, a Dutch couple and a German national. Also, a British passenger evacuated from the vessel is in intensive care in South Africa, and 2 crew members require urgent medical attention. The Dutch flagship MV Hondius is currently moored off Cape Verde, which has refused to allow the remaining 150 passengers ashore. 2 medical evacuation planes are now reportedly en route. Meanwhile, the Spanish Health Ministry confirmed on Tuesday it will receive the ship in the Canary Islands code in accordance with the international law and humanitarian principles. In Ukraine, Russian strikes killed at least 27 people across the country's east on Tuesday, hours before a Ukrainian ceasefire proposal was set to take effect at midnight. The worst attack killed 12 in the city of Zaporizhia. Ukraine had called for an open-ended halt to fighting starting at midnight, urging Russia to follow. Russia instead announced only a brief pause for May 9th and 9th to coincide with its World War II victory commemorations in Moscow. President Vladimir Zelensky rejected Moscow's proposal, saying that Russia just wanted a pause for its military parade while still pounding Ukraine with missiles and drones. In Colombia, a gas explosion at a coal mine on Monday killed 9 workers and injured 6. The explosion came just weeks after safety inspectors had flagged a dangerous buildup of gases, including methane, at the same site. The blast struck at least 600 meters underground at a legally operated mine in the Sutatosa municipality, 72 kilometers north of Bogota. The National Mining Agency said it had recommended safety improvements during an April inspection, but the warnings had been ignored. In the U.S., stars turned up barely unrecognizable at Monday's Met Gala in New York. Beyoncé made her first Met Gala appearance in 10 years as one of its co-chairs. Bad Bunny disguised himself as an elderly man. Heidi Klum turned up as the Statue of Liberty, and Madonna arrived with a ship on her head. Outside the gala, protesters held signs spelling out "Tax the Rich," targeting Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, who sponsored the event for the first time. Bezos donated a reported $10 million to the event, which led to calls for a boycott over wealth inequality and workers' rights.
The weather for Children's Day yesterday was nearly perfect for spending some time outdoors. And Wednesday began breezy this morning, but temperatures will climb rapidly as we head into the afternoon. And we're talking a 15 degrees Celsius gap between morning and the afternoon today. And for today, the sky will remain mostly clear, which means you'll be basking in some very intense UV rays with high ozone concentrations as well. Sunscreen is definitely recommended if you're spending time time outdoors. And this afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 24 degrees Celsius. Daegu at 26 degrees. Air quality will be clean nationwide all day today. Tomorrow's spotty rain in central areas will bring relief from today's warmth. After the rain clears, we'll see temperature begin climbing again. And this weekend looks like being beautiful with clear, mild spring weather in the forecast. Perfect timing for outdoor plans.
That's all we have for this morning. Arirang News will be back at noon Korea time. Thanks for watching.